One Philadelphia gas station manager has hired armed security guards to protect his business. Neil Patel, the manager of Cargo gas station in North Philadelphia, Patel says he hired bodyguards armed with AR-15s and shotguns after an increase in crimes over the past several years.
We are tired from this all nonsense. Robbery, drug trafficking, racketings, all kind of hanging around all gangs.
According to Patel, the final straw was when his gas station was vandalized and the ATM machine was stolen. He told reporters that since the guards started 3 weeks ago, there had been no crimes at his business, which is the promise of legal gun ownership. This is why some people would like to own guns so that they can defend their homes and their businesses and deter crime.
If this seems like a system that's working out for you, Robby, it seems like that's a good system. He has a legal right to do it, and he's done it, and he says it's worked. I think the question is, do we want a world in which individuals, kind of vigilante style, hire out armed people to protect their property, or should we be having a more robust conversation about, one, why does the police seem to be so ineffective at their jobs despite being hugely funded, sometimes to the tune of 50% of city budgets, and two, why it is that there is so much crime in the first place. We're talking about petty vandalization and stealing of ATMs, things that are, I'm sorry, correlated significantly with poverty, and those are not the kinds of crimes that people of means are going around doing. So what's going on in society, and can we start to address those sorts of root causes as well? Or are we comfortable with a world where there are independently hired, independently vetted, not systemically trained people with high-capacity weapons standing on corners all across our cities?
But someone has to provide defense services to the public. So if it's not going to be the police, or the police are doing a bad job, I mean, this is why people are taking matters into their own hands, right? Because the police are not doing a good job. Mm-hmm. Or we don't have policies in place to correctly oppose this. I mean, I don't want to throw more money at the police either. I don't want to reward bad policing with more funding necessarily.
Nor do I.
But someone the mission of of deterring and preventing and reducing violence in society and violence and crime is you're not society at all unless you're doing those things. So
right. Well, there are people who think you can reduce violence and crime by addressing the root causes of violence and crime, and there's some people who tend to be focused exclusively on the idea of intimidating people out of committing crime where they don't want the crime to be committed. But I think there's an acknowledgement that, water flows somewhere. And unless you get to the root causes, what you're basically doing is maybe defending your perch, which matters to you. And if that's your business and that's your home, then that obviously matters to you for sincere and legitimate reasons, but it doesn't actually get at the cause of the problem. And it also puts everybody else in a situation I don't know, do you want to be shopping at the gas station with armed guards, or would you prefer to be shopping at a gas station that was safe without that kind of visible militarized presence?
Well, I mean, I think if you're in Philadelphia, you might rather be there with the armed guards, because the crime in Philadelphia specifically is very bad. I've said it on the show a number of times. Right, I concede some of the rhetoric about crime in the country is overheated or doesn't correspond to what you're seeing in cities. Philadelphia, the violent crime rate is just as bad as it was in the heyday of the 1980s, before the vast reduction in crime that took place across this country. Something has gone horribly wrong there. Has poverty in Philadelphia specifically increased dramatically in the last 10 years in a way it hasn't in other cities, and that explains the crime? I don't know that. That would kind of surprise me, but maybe it's the case.
We could Google it and figure it out, but also, I'm not making an affirmative argument here. If you want to support the guy, if you want everyone to get AR-15s rather, and stand outside of buildings with guns, hey, it's your right. Go forth. I suspect that many people are uncomfortable with that, but I'm not making an argument. Good for that guy. That's his choice. If that's the world that people want to live in, that's the world we're headed to. And if you want to go down that road, people can go down that road. If you want to have a conversation about what it would take for that man not to have to hire an armed guard, I would love to have that conversation. But it's clear that there is a real accountability issue with the police. There is a funding problem with the police. And we're obviously not using our resources as a society in a way that is getting the end results that we want. And I have more faith in our ability to come to better solutions in the zero-sum games we've been pursuing to this point. I think a lot of folks are at a tipping point where we've seen all of these instances of police malfeasance over the past year with Uvalde, et cetera, that we want to have different kinds of outcomes and explore different ways of getting at crime that we haven't necessarily explored before because of this like narrow-minded carceral focus. And I look forward to seeing those results. I have a lot of faith in us as a community of people to get those results if we actually are targeting the root problems of things instead of just
I don't think most gun owners are not like more irresponsible with guns than the police themselves. They're, in fact, many of them are probably more responsible because there's less leeway.
I'm not talking about gun owners. I'm not saying anything about anybody.
Yeah.
The question is, do you want armed guys with hired hands, mercenaries with machine guns standing outside, automatic weapons standing outside of establishments? Does that seem like a reasonable way to run a city? And if it seems like that way to you, good news, that's what is happening right now, and that's what you're allowed to do. If that puts a little bit of a chill down your spine because you're concerned about oversight, you're concerned about whether or not they're going to fall into some of the same traps that police fall into with even less accountability and training that police have, if you're concerned about whether or not they might escalate situations and cause death to be a result where the previous result might have been theft of property, which is obviously bad but not as significant if you're the store owner, well then we got to have a robust conversation about what this means and whether this is going to become something more akin to the norm. That's all.
Well, I don't think in the ideal world, maybe you wouldn't need anyone to have armed guards patrolling their businesses, but you also wouldn't have immigrant business owners terrorized by people stealing their ATMs and their stuff and maybe inviting violence on their person.
Isn't that the goal? Isn't that the goal to try to figure out policy solutions to get us closer to an ideal world?
Let's figure them out.
All right. Well, until then, armed vigilantes it is.
Tomorrow on Rising, Yahoo News reporter Kevin Cirilli will be here in studio to discuss updates on the Sam Bankman-Fried FTX saga, which we haven't talked about yet this week, but is exciting. Yeah, for sure. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who prefer to listen while on the move, we are now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can also check us out on Roku and other streaming services. And we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.